Am I the asshole for calling out my stepsister for acting like a brat in public? Obligatory throwaway I've been using because I don't want it to be tied back to my personal life. Here's some backstory. My dad, 52M, met my now stepmom, Janet, 47F, when I, 17F, was 10. She also brought in my two younger stepsiblings, Mike, 13M, and Lindsay, 17F. If I'm being honest, I actually really like Janet and Mike. The only person who I never took a liking to was Lindsay, mainly because she's a brat and it's gotten to the point where I don't like being seen with her at all, especially in public. She will start throwing actual childlike tantrums and will start pouting and being extremely rude to my parents if we don't go to a restaurant she wants to go to when the rest of us agree on another place. We want to see a movie that she apparently hates, even if it literally just came out. We use the bathroom, there's two, she just prefers the slightly bigger one, when she needs it, even though we ask her if she needs to go beforehand. My parents say to just let her ride it out and ignore it, but it's so embarrassing to be seen with this 17-year-old girl who is crying and yelling just because we can't afford to go to Starbucks, or whatever it is she wants in that current moment. The situation. We went to Applebee's the other day because my parents took us to a local fair and they didn't want to spend a bunch of money on fair food. And anyone who has ever been to a fair knows how ridiculously expensive it is. We were already teetering on the edge to a meltdown with her, because of course she didn't want to go to Applebee's, but Janet calmed her down and told her she could get whatever she wanted, within reason. So, we sit down, everything is going well, and then the waitress comes over and obviously, asks what we wanted. I asked for a cheeseburger with fries, because it was on the cheaper side, but Lindsay wanted this big steak and a bunch of sides. Janet tells her to get one side and a smaller steak, and I guess that sent her over the edge. She started being so incredibly rude to Janet, saying how her dad would let her have it, that she was told she could have whatever she wanted by Janet, even though Janet said to keep it cheaper. Lindsay just kept talking about how she wants a bigger steak, she wants more sides, all the while this poor waitress is standing there looking nervous. So, I cut her off and said, "You're lucky you're getting anything at this point, because you're acting like a giant ungrateful brat and it's so fucking embarrassing." She just stopped and went quiet, and the first 5 minutes after were a little awkward, but the rest of the dinner was fine. When we got home, Lindsay just went straight to her room and slammed the door, as usual when she doesn't get her way, but my dad stopped me before I went to my room and told me that while he sees where I was coming from, it was a bit of an asshole move to embarrass her like that in front of the other customers and the waitress. So Reddit, was I really the asshole? Not the asshole. She already put on a show for the waitress and other customers. I bet that waitress told her friends in the kitchen how you put the brat in her place. Doesn't it embarrass your father when she acts that way? Does he not think they should be addressing her tantrums? Not the asshole. I think she honestly needs to be embarrassed more, or else she's just gonna keep doing this and causing issues. Do your parents usually say no to her or do they just give in? That could also be causing your stepsister's behavior to not get better. Not the asshole. As for, in front of the waitress, ISTM that the whole incident was already in front of the waitress. Is Lindsay neurotypical? Not an excuse, but maybe an explanation. Not the asshole. My dad stopped me before I went to my room and told me that while he sees where I was coming from, it was a bit of an asshole move to embarrass her like that in front of the other customers and the waitress. Incorrect. She'd already done that way before you intervened. Kudos for doing it because it sounds like you had a drama-free time after. Your stepmom and her dad are the ones who should have addressed her behavior long since. Weren't you embarrassed by her? How come she wasn't given the lecture on not making you feel bad? Not the asshole. Peer correction is important at this stage of life. You calling her out does a lot more than her mom correcting her. Also 17 is way too old to be throwing tantrums in public, private. What you said isn't even that bad. Am I the asshole for not paying for wife's checked bag after she voluntarily gave her carry-ons away? Wife voluntarily gives away carry-ons that I buy her. Her friends, family will ask to borrow it, never return it, and she says it's rude to ask for it back. We've lost 3 carry-ons this way. So now that we have an upcoming trip, I booked our flights with just carry-ons. Told wife she can pay for her own checked bag if she wants. Am I the asshole? It's not rude to ask for the carry-ons back. Ask your wife to ask the people that borrowed them or text them yourself. Why is this a big deal? Sit down and have a conversation with your wife and come up with a solution. My husband and I share a bank account and we both work full-time. I don't think teaching her a lesson is the right approach. Everyone sucks here to this reactive approach and her for not getting back her luggage. Both annoying. Info. Do you share finances? What does it mean for her to pay for her own checked luggage? She's a grown woman, she can figure it out. She's not a child, so she handle her own luggage. Why would it be rude to ask for your own stuff back? I think the two of you should just stay home and be miserable there for free. She can handle her own luggage and if she needs to get a carry-on or whatever. But I find this a really bizarre hill to die on. Am I the asshole for not letting my daughter around his GF? I am a 32, I just had a baby girl back in August. The father of my child 42, and I broke up 4 months into my pregnancy due to him not being faithful. Fast forward 3 months later he gets a girlfriend and they move in together from what he told me. She then called my phone out of the nowhere 8 p.m. at night telling me F me and my daughter until the DNA test comes back. I then blocked him from calling me and only communicated with him via Facebook Messenger. I told him I had no problem giving him a DNA test for our daughter and even offered to do the non-invasive one while I was pregnant, but he declined. I also invited him to the birth of my daughter and he had every excuse why he couldn't come. After being released from the hospital I took my daughter to get the DNA test done and still he has yet to go do his part even though the test has been paid for. I also told him his girlfriend is not allowed around our daughter because she seems not too happy about our daughter existence. He then proceeds to tell me in order for him to have a relationship with our daughter his girlfriend has to have one with her as well. I've also proposed that we all meet up because maybe she's not a bad person. He's declined that. I've also bought everything that she has needed since he said he wouldn't do anything until the DNA test comes back. So now he's claiming I won't let him see her, but I've told him he can without the girlfriend since we can't meet. So am I the asshole for setting this guideline? Not the asshole. Do you have a lawyer? If not, get one. Get a court-ordered test, get child support, and draw up a custody agreement. Check with your lawyer to see if it can include no contact with the girlfriend. Not the asshole, but you're focusing on the wrong punishment. Neither of them care about the baby. Get that clear and straight in your head. Stop letting him jerk around about paternity. Make sure he's on the birth certificate and sue for child support. I have told him if she didn't come at me not once but twice like a crazy woman I would have had no problem with her being around her, and the fact that he allowed it makes me question his judgment. I've filed for child support and in our state since we aren't married I have full legal custody of our daughter and he's not on the birth certificate, so technically right now he has no rights, but I have contacted a lawyer. Not the asshole, but go to court and get a custody agreement. His lack of participation in the paternity test and any foul messages will work in your favor, too. Not the asshole, but you need to seek a lawyer and get a co-parenting agreement set up in writing. You need a lawyer and a court order. Not Reddit. Would I be the asshole for uninviting my dad from our house until he stops calling it an apartment? My husband and I, both in our 30s, bought our first house last year. It's an end terrace in a major city, meaning it's small compared to countryside houses and shares a wall to another house. It's a house in our contract, in the bank valuation, by common sense, by all definitions. My family is from the countryside. As soon as my dad saw the plans of the house, he started referring to it as an apartment and thought it was super funny. I thought it was weird, but knowing him, I just chuckled and moved on with conversation. Then it became a thing. He only ever referred to it as an apartment. I didn't laugh at it anymore, just said, "Come on Dad, it's a house," but I didn't make it a big deal and moved on. One day, we had a phone conversation and he again called it an apartment mid-conversation. I said, "Dad, it's not an apartment, it's a house," and let some silence hang in the air. It got awkward and he laughed it off, saying, "Of course I know that, I don't mean anything by it." Then please call it a house. You're being impolite. Okay. Now, he makes it a joke to overcorrect himself. He talks about apart, oh no I'm the house ha ha ha, while making faces. Not great, but I'm just exhausted at this point. Please note he has never visited the house because he lives so far away. We usually visit him. He's only seen it on images. So last weekend, he stayed over for his first visit. It was a nice weekend, apart from me ignoring his jokes and some other quirks of his. But overall, pleasant. Then yesterday, it was my grandma's birthday, his mom. My whole family was there, 50 people, apart from me due to the distance. I called my grandma in the evening and she asked me, "Did you move? I thought you bought a house last year." "No, still living in our same house." "Why? Your dad's told everyone that you live in an apartment now." I then talked to Grandpa, who for the first time started referring to our house as an apartment. I later had my mom and uncle on the phone who always referred to it as a house, but now call it an apartment. And my mom told me Dad even goes so far to call it a chicken den to her and my sisters because he finds it so ridiculous. Apparently, it's still the funniest joke to him, but the rest of the family takes it as fact. I'm fed up. I want to tell him that he's not invited anymore until he starts being respectful, but whenever I have an opinion, I'm being hysterical and in the wrong. My husband is Teflon. He thinks my dad is not very bright about social cues and I should not argue with an idiot, but I'm not as unfazed as he is by this kind of stuff. So would I be the asshole if I tell him to leave me alone and not stay over again until he changes his attitude? Edit. I live in the UK, it is called a house here. Edit 2. He actually calls in a flat. I just incorrectly Americanized for some reason since we're on Reddit. Apologies. Edit 3. Thanks for the input everyone. I have written a long message, in which I expressed my frustration to my dad about him repeatedly calling our house a flat, even though I had asked him not to. I explained that while the word itself didn't matter, it hurt that he ignored my feelings. I said it became more upsetting when he said it in front of other family members, and they started using the same term. I asked him to stop making this joke and to respect our home the way I see it. He has a habit of talking over me on the phone and not properly listening to me, so I figured a message would be more effective. This was his response. Hey big girl, I'm tall, so, actually, yesterday we were mostly talking about what a nice weekend it was. The topic of the flat or whatever it is was really just a side issue. By the way, I didn't even talk about it during the whole weekend with you guys. Why would I? It's not that important to me at all. Which is why I don't need to pay much attention to it, and besides, the whole thing lasted at most 5 minutes. So everything's chill. I'm a little surprised that this even made its way to you at all. Best, Dad, I responded. If it's not that important, then I don't understand even more why you insist on calling it a flat. Especially when I've asked you not to do so. As I said, I would really appreciate it if we could drop the joke. He didn't respond after that. I later got a hunch and called my mom, his ex-wife. She was upset, but not with me. Apparently, he forwarded my messages to each of them and left very angry voice messages about my hysteria, accusing them of ratting him out and disloyalty. They didn't say anything, it was my grandparents. My mom lost it and gave him a huge telling off for speaking to all of us that way and that he should know better than to behave like this at their age, both 55. That he should be a more supportive dad and not such a bull in a china shop. He hasn't been in touch with anyone since. I imagine he's sulking. He's never been great with criticism. Anyway, I feel supported by my mom and guilty because I caused a family argument. I hope he mulls everything over and comes to the conclusion that he won't do it again. I didn't want things to blow up, just for the jokes to stop. Oh well. Tell your dad you are concerned that he's showing signs of dementia and that he should be checked out urgently. Not the asshole. He's not joking. He's bullying you about something he knows you care about. Correct everyone else. No, it's our house, but my dad's being an asshole about it. Think about why. Maybe it's, he hates the city. Or, he has always put down others' accomplishments. Or connect to something he said about them that they hate too. He should not weaken your other relationships. To your dad. You obviously hate it, so you don't have to be in it. You owe me an apology for trashing me to family members, and I'm done talking about it with you. If you think the relationship is salvageable, and this is somehow anomalous, you can tell him how much he has hurt you and how sad you feel that he can't be happy for you or support you. Here it would be called condo, townhouse, or duplex. Never apartment, but depending on where he is it might not be considered a house, simply because of an attached wall. In Ta, it's seen your dad is deliberately trying to belittle your achievement. Sink to his level of funny, start referring to him as your mom's partner, or your sister's dad, both are correct statements. Honestly, this sounds trivial. If it bothers you so much you do deserve to address it, but I think the bigger question is why does it bother you to the point you'd tell your dad not to come over? My dad just died a few months ago suddenly and I would give anything to see him and hang with him again, even with all his bad jokes and sometimes getting under my skin as dads tend to be good at. If you never saw your dad again, would this even matter to you? I just think in the grand scheme of things it's just not that deep.